Andrew, your takeaway from all of that. Let's start with Trump and China.
That's radical. This would freeze massive amounts of trade between the world's two biggest economies. I mean, this guy doesn't hold back. They had threatened that if China hit back at the latest round of U.S. tariffs, which Beijing did very promptly, America said, well, we'll up the ante. And sure enough, they're talking about doing that, another 50%. But this would paralyze large sections of the U.S. economy, at least temporarily, because America is so intertwined with China, not just consumer goods, but also all kinds of industrial products. It's not just that China makes things cheaper. That stopped being the story a decade or more ago. They make things better in many cases, and you just can't get these products elsewhere. Markets, though, rebounding. There's a chorus now on Wall Street telling Trump to cool his jets a bit. We've got Bill Ackman, Stanley Druckenmiller, two billionaire investors, calling on Trump to rethink the policies. Jamie Dimon, one of the best-known business leaders in America, the head of J.P. Morgan, the big bank, saying he hopes this thing comes to an end soon, this trade war. So there is a hope in the markets that the White House will find some face-saving way of relenting. I mean, they have been emphasizing the fact that quite a few countries, including Vietnam and Thailand, have sought negotiations. They have been in talks with Japan, but certainly volatility is going to be the order of the day. At least one market observer saying that in the past, when we've seen the stock market bottom, like happened in 1982 or 2019, 2009, after the financial crisis, you did see rallies on the way, sucker rallies as they're called, but the market kept plunging. So the fear, of course, is this bounce in stocks today. It could be just a sucker rally.
Yeah, we're going to show as well, and you know this much better than I do, the so-called, circuit breaker criteria here, what the threshold has to be. So, the S&P 500 index, here we go. Level 1 is 7%, level 2 is 13%, level 3 is 20% halted for the remainder of the day. How low can the markets go? And we do want to point out that they have rebounded a lot from where they were, let's say, Thursday, Friday, and earlier today, Andrew.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've got the S&P 500. Last time I checked, and I'm just looking, it's narrowly in positive territory. It's up about 1/3%. The NASDAQ, home to those big tech stocks, is up around 1%. You're right. The circuit breakers have not kicked in yet. We haven't had that kind of a brutal sell-off that would induce that. But we haven't seen volatility like this since the COVID era, early in 2020, when people thought that the world economy could be paralyzed for an indefinite time. So we are seeing major swings, and Asia and Europe, of course, overnight sold off brutally. We'll see. Whether you disagree or agree with his policies, you got to hand it to Trump and his team. They certainly have the courage of their convictions. They're sticking with this thing for now.
Yeah, they are. One last question. It seems to me the president's goal here, Andrew, is to sort of reshape, trade routes and supply lines and try to force companies to relocate to the U.S., expand their footprint in the U.S. But doesn't that take years and cost tens of billions of dollars? With all the uncertainty, why would they do that, given that President Trump is only in office for another 3.5 years?
Yeah, you put your finger on it. Factories moved out of America and Canada for a reason, because it's expensive to build things, and you can do it more cheaply in China and Bangladesh and Vietnam or Mexico. That's why Mexico has taken away so many of our auto parts jobs. There is a debate there. Did we construct CUSMA and NAFTA in the right way to protect our manufacturing? But a lot of economists would say you're just trying to, block the tide here. You put your finger in the dike. I'm running out of metaphors here. That these economic forces are irresistible. That manufacturing will relentlessly shift to where it's cheapest to do it, or in the case of China, where it can be done best. China is more advanced in some respects, not just cheaper.
And it is interesting that this is the president's perspective, and has been, Andrew, going back to the 1980s when he was a businessman in New York. He's railing about the Japanese back in the 1980s.
Yeah, that's right. Back in the 80s, people thought, oh, Japan might take over the world. Their stock market famously peaked around 1989, and then they had decades of relative stagnation. They had slow growth, but Japan's not a bad place to live. I mean, it's got low crime, cheap healthcare, but it hasn't been a growth economy for a long time. But as you say, it's interesting you mentioned that Trump has been talking about this thing since the 1980s. And I think economists would generally say, well, look, a more sophisticated and realistic view is that trade involves give and take. There's another important angle here. We're talking about goods, but the world economy runs on services. It runs on data and services. And tariffs haven't gone on services because they're so much harder to calculate the exchange of value. For example, software or engineering, giant American companies like Bechtel or Fluor that provide engineering services around the world, just to provide examples. But, you know, it'll be interesting if other nations say, well, we'll start blocking off your internet giants. See how you like that. We have got Canada with its digital tax on digital giants. That got up the nose of the Americans. So far, I haven't seen Ottawa producing any signals that we'll back down on taxing those internet giants. Maybe whoever is the next prime minister will throw a bone to America and say, OK, we'll cancel that. It's just a fascinating time, but it looks as though Trump and his team are just being crude here, and they're trying to harken back to a world in which America was the manufacturing center of the world, but those days are gone.
Andy Bell with BNN Bloomberg in downtown Toronto. Good to have you on for an extended chat, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thanks a million. Talk soon.